Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1132, and today's date is November 20th, 2016, and the title of the episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we see the corporate media, the U.S. government, Obama, the globalists, the shadow government, the central bank. One thing they can't stand is the alternative media, the new media, the media that's on the internet that they can't control. And they're going after it. I mean, instead of using conspiracy theory type of sites, they're just calling it fake news. And it looks like there's a war now on fake news. But from the news that we see on the corporate media and from what the government has been telling us, we see a lot of the things they say are completely fake. If we look at the economy right now, well, the economy has been built on fake economic data to perpetrate a fake narrative of growth. I mean, think about it for a second. They keep telling us that unemployment is at 4.9%. And realistically, how could this possibly be? With 45 million people on food stamps, over 100 million people out of the workforce. Switching and manipulating the numbers to count part-time people as full-time, and when they lose the job, if they don't have the hours, if they're not making the dollar salary per week, depending on which state it is, they're not counted as losing that job. The GDP growth, for instance. Well, they keep telling us it's going to be, 3.5%, 4%. Well, the U.S. has yet to achieve a single year of 3% GDP growth in the last 8 years. How in the world is the economy actually improving? The government has spent more money than at any other time. Since 2008, we have added $10 trillion to debt. The spending is out of control. The U.S. debt to GDP ratio went from 77% to 105%. And yet, we've had the weakest recovery in U.S. economic history. So we know that the stock market is not based on earnings, not based on how well companies are doing. We know that's completely manipulated. So when we look around, who is really giving us fake news, fake economic data? It's the U.S. government. It's the central bank. It's the shadow governments. And if we look back in time, we can see the corporate media and the U.S. government continually always gave us fake news. Remember when George W. Bush came out and said that, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction? Well, did they? No, they didn't. That was completely fake. We see on August 5th, 1964, the New York Times reported President Johnson has ordered retaliatory action against gunboats and certain supporting facilities in North Vietnam after renewed attacks against American destroyer in the Gulf of Tonkin. But it wasn't true at all. In fact, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, as it became known, turned out to be fictitious, created by the government to escalate the war in Vietnam. Just recently, a destroyer off the coast of Yemen said that the Houthis were firing missiles at the ship, and the U.S. destroyer had to fire back and hit the radar sites in Yemen. And it turned out, well, maybe they really didn't fire missiles at us. Maybe our systems malfunctioned and we thought they did. Again, another fake story to push their agenda. There was a time on Fox News when they hired a CIA operative who wasn't a CIA operative. Wayne Shelby Simons made a guest appearance on Fox News as a security expert with insider expertise from his work as a CIA operative. And it turns out that he was an imposter. And his lies caught up with him. He was arrested and he was sentenced to 33 months in prison. More fake news. Look at 9/11. One of the biggest fake news jobs that is out there right now. So when we talk about fake news, we need to look closely at what's really going on. Actually, you know what's very interesting is that they're asking for a pardon for Snowden. And Obama came out and he said, well, I can't pardon somebody who hasn't gone before a court and presented themselves. So that's not something that I would comment on at this point, he said. Well, this is completely incorrect because, as it is known to anyone who remembers the fact that Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon before he had been indicted. And it appears that the president knows this because, as the Pardon Snowden campaign points out, Obama pardoned 3 Iranian Americans who had not yet stood trial. And that happened this year. So for him to say it's impossible to pardon someone who hasn't gone before the court is simply a lie. And then we have the Supreme Court. They had a ruling that makes this abundantly clear. 150 years ago, in the ruling of Ex parte Garland, the Supreme Court stated, the power of pardon conferred by the Constitution upon the President is unlimited except in cases of impeachment. It extends to every offense known to the law and may be exercised at any time after its commission, either before legal proceedings are taken or during their pendency or after conviction and judgment. The power is not subject to legislative control. And what he's really saying is that, listen, anyone that is a whistleblower, beware. You'll be going to jail, and most likely you'll never be seen again. And this is why he won't pardon Snowden. We understand that paid protesters that belong to Soros organization, Hillary's organization, the deep state, the globalists, they're planning to block a peaceful inauguration for Trump in January. But before that, what they're trying to do is they're trying to flip electors right now. Because what they want to do, and this is within the law, they want electors before December 19th to change their votes. So they want those numbers that we're seeing right now from the Electoral College to change. They want it to make it even with Trump, so there's a tie, or make it a little bit more than Trump to say, okay, look what happened before December 19th when they met, everything flipped. Hillary is now the president, or we have a tie, and whoever has the popular vote, that's really who it should go with. That's step one. That's what they're trying to do right now before December 19th. If that doesn't work, well, then they're going to try to maybe incapacitate, maybe even assassinate Donald Trump before this period of December 19th. If this doesn't work, they're going to try to create civil unrest in the country during inauguration. They want a civil war, and this is why they're pushing so hard for this. This is why they want this done during this time. This is why you see ads on Craigslist. This is why you see it on Facebook, where they're trying to get as many people as they possibly can together. They want people to join. They want the hate to flow. And this is why the corporate media is continually pushing this out to the public. And remember, all the hate, all the rioting, all the protests are not coming from the Trump organization. It's actually coming from the people who want Hillary as president. But again, most of these are agent provocateurs, professional protesters, trying to bring in others to feel the same hate. And they're trying to build on this. We see Britain has just passed the Snooper Charter, ending all privacy. Now, the new legislation that was just introduced establishes the legal framework for authorizing the government to hack into devices, network services in bulk, and to create vast databases of personal information on all UK citizens. This is the first step for a movement to impose worldwide spying, taxation, and everything else on people. I mean, what they're doing is they're hunting for money, not terrorism. They want to know what people are doing. They're looking for revenue. And they're keeping track on what people are doing. Actually, if you remember back to V for Vendetta, they rode around in a van listening to people. And here we are, it's coming true. The Snooper Charter requires internet, phone, and communication app companies to store records for 12 months and allow authorities to access them whenever they demand. That data will include anything you look at or search on the internet, as well as all your telephone calls and text messages. So they just came out and they just made it completely legal. They're not hiding it from the people. They just want all the information. And Edward Snowden is out there, and he says the following: the UK has just legalized the most extreme surveillance in history of Western democracy. We see right now that the British government, they have reject calls by 2 parliamentary committees to stop the sale of British bombs to Saudi Arabia. We know that Saudi Arabia has been using these weapons. They've been committing war crimes. The U.S. is supplying Saudi Arabia with this equipment, and the UK says absolutely not. We're not going to stop. We're going to continually supply Saudi Arabia with all of this. We see Russia is angry with the Swiss because as Russia was flying in journalists on a plane, there was a Swiss fighter that shadowed the Russian government aircraft over the European countries, and Russia is out there asking for an explanation. We see the FBI is out there trying to scare the people once again, and they're alerting all law enforcement officials, the people, that something might happen during Thanksgiving or during the inauguration. What they're saying is that there's good evidence that terrorists are going to strike at any minute in large crowd venues. You mean like the Macy's Day Parade? Could happen during the inauguration. And they're looking at lone wolf groups. So what they're really doing is they're trying to scare the people once again with propaganda. We know this is going to be an inside job if they get a green light. And they're going to create events. And this is something that we need to watch and understand, photograph, video, because we know that this is going to be an inside job. We know this has nothing to do with the Islamic State. This has nothing to do with terrorists. This has to do with the shadow government, the deep state, the central bank, those who are in power, who want to keep their power. They're trying to scare the American people. They're trying to screw things up during the inauguration. They're trying to create a civil war. They're trying to keep America divided. They're doing whatever they possibly can to get their way. And they will use events. They will use war. They will use a cyber attack to get their way. And we can see already they're pushing the idea. They're even saying that these attacks could be done with guns, IEDs, drones, or any other type of explosive devices, even dirty nukes. So we can see right now they're really playing this up, and we need to watch because we know that this most likely, 99.9999% sure, that this is going to be a false flag once again to push their agenda. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.